The autumn wind swept through the streets of Boston as Emma wiped down the marble counter in the penthouse kitchen. She had worked as a personal assistant to Victoria Chen, a powerful tech CEO, for 2 years. The job paid well, but Victoria's rules were strict and unforgiving. Never open the door to strangers. Never give anything to anyone without my permission. Never question my decisions. Emma had memorized these rules, repeating them silently each morning as she prepared Victoria's breakfast. Today was supposed to be like any other Tuesday. But fate had different plans. At exactly 3 in the afternoon, Emma heard a soft knock on the service entrance. She shouldn't have looked. She knew the rules. But something made her peek through the small window. A man stood there, his clothes worn and patched, his face lined with exhaustion. He looked like he hadn't eaten in days. His eyes met hers through the glass, and she saw something that broke her heart, quiet desperation mixed with dignity. "Please," he said softly. "Do you have any food to spare?" "Just a little." Emma's mind raced. Victoria would be furious if she found out. But Emma knew hunger. She knew what it felt like to go to bed with an empty stomach, back when she was orphaned at 12 and shuffled between foster homes. Those memories never fully faded. Her late grandmother's words echoed in her mind. "If you have bread and someone has none, share half. That's what keeps us human." Emma made her decision quickly. She went to the kitchen, packed leftover pasta and vegetables into a container, added a bottle of water, and returned to the service entrance. She didn't open the door fully, just enough to pass the food through. "Thank you," the man whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "What's your name?" "Emma," she replied. "Please eat well." He nodded gratefully, and Emma felt warmth spread through her chest. It was a small act, but it felt right. Then disaster struck. Victoria's car pulled into the private garage. Through the security camera, Emma watched her employer step out, her sharp eyes scanning the area. She had seen everything. Victoria stormed through the entrance, her heels clicking like gunshots on the marble floor. Her face was twisted with fury. "What did you just do?" Victoria's voice was ice cold. Emma's throat went dry. "Ma'am, he was hungry. You disobeyed my direct orders." Victoria's words cut through the air. "I pay you to follow rules, not to think for yourself. How dare you put my security at risk?" "He was just hungry." "I don't care." Victoria grabbed Emma's work bag from the closet and threw it at her feet. "Pack your things. You're fired. Get out of my home." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Please, Ms. Chen. I need this job. I'm saving for medical school. I have nowhere to go right now." Victoria's expression didn't soften. "You should have thought about that before you decided to play hero. If you want to help strangers so badly, go live with them." Emma bent down to pick up her bag, her hands shaking. Everything she owned for work was in this building. Her extra clothes, her study materials, her dreams of becoming a doctor. "I gave you everything," Victoria continued. "A good salary, a room, opportunities. And you threw it away for some random person on the street." Emma straightened up, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry you see kindness as weakness." Victoria pointed to the door. "Get out. Now." With trembling hands, Emma walked to the service entrance where the stranger still stood, looking horrified at what he had witnessed. "I'm so sorry," he said softly. "This is my fault." Emma shook her head, wiping her tears. "No. This is about who she is, not who you are." The stranger looked at her for a long moment, studying her face as if memorizing something important. Then he did something unexpected. He reached into his worn jacket and pulled out a sleek smartphone. Emma blinked in confusion. A homeless person with an expensive phone? He made a quick call. "Send the cars to 1150 Harbor Street. Now." Emma's heart skipped a beat. Cars. What was happening? Within minutes, the quiet street filled with the sound of approaching engines. 3 black SUVs pulled up, moving in perfect coordination. Men in suits stepped out. "Sir," one of them said, bowing his head. Emma stared at the man she had fed, her world spinning. "Who are you?" If you're enjoying this story of kindness and unexpected twists, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our inspiring stories. Comment below. Would you have helped the stranger? Let's discuss. Emma stood frozen on the sidewalk, her bag clutched to her chest as the stranger began removing his disguise. The tangled beard came off first, revealing smooth skin underneath. Then he pulled away a wig, exposing neatly trimmed dark hair. Finally, he removed the torn jacket, and beneath it was an expensive tailored suit. "My name is David Park," he said calmly. "I'm the CEO of Park Technologies." Emma's legs felt weak. Park Technologies was one of the largest software companies in the country. Everyone knew that name. But why? Emma whispered. Why pretend to be homeless? David's expression softened. "I wanted to see who would show kindness when there was nothing to gain from it. Today, I found someone with a genuine heart." Emma looked back at Victoria's building, her former workplace, her former life. "Your experiment cost me everything." "I know," David said, his voice serious. "And I'm going to make this right. Please, come with me. Let me explain properly." Emma hesitated. Everything was happening too fast. One moment she was employed, the next she was jobless, and now a billionaire was asking her to get into his car. "I can't just go with a stranger," Emma said. David smiled slightly. "You didn't treat me like a stranger when I was hungry. You trusted your instinct then. Trust it now." Something in his eyes convinced her. Emma climbed into the SUV, still clutching her bag like a lifeline. The interior was luxurious. Leather seats, soft lighting, complete silence from the outside world. As they drove through Boston streets, David explained. "I do this twice a year. I disguise myself and walk through different neighborhoods. I want to know who people really are when they think no one important is watching." Emma listened, her heart still pounding. "And what did you learn today?" "That you have integrity," David said. "You chose compassion over security. That's rare." Emma felt tears threatening again. "That compassion just left me homeless." "No," David said firmly. "That compassion led you to a new beginning." He paused. "Tell me, Emma, what were you saving for?" Emma took a shaky breath. "Medical school. I want to be a doctor. My grandmother died because we couldn't afford proper treatment. I promised myself I'd help people who couldn't afford help." David nodded slowly. "And Victoria knew this?" "Yes. I told her during my interview. She said she admired ambition." Emma laughed bitterly. "I guess she only admired it when it didn't inconvenience her." The SUV turned onto a tree-lined street, approaching a modern building that seemed to reach into the clouds. David's headquarters. "There's something you should know," David said as they pulled into the private garage. "Victoria's company, Chan Digital Solutions, received major funding 3 years ago from an investment firm. That firm is owned by me." Emma's eyes widened. "You own part of her company?" 40%, David confirmed. "She doesn't know it's me. The investment went through a proxy. But after today, after seeing how she treats people." He paused. "Let's just say I'll be reconsidering that investment." Emma felt dizzy. The implications were enormous. Victoria's entire business could collapse. They took a private elevator to the top floor. David's office was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor, shelves filled with books, comfortable furniture that looked both expensive and welcoming. "Sit," David said gently. "You've had a traumatic day." Emma sank into a chair, finally setting down her bag. "Why are you helping me? Really?" David sat across from her, his expression thoughtful. "When I was 22, I was broke. My startup had failed, I was sleeping in my car, and I hadn't eaten in 2 days. A woman working at a diner gave me food even though I couldn't pay. She said, "Pay it forward when you can." That woman's kindness kept me alive long enough to try again. My second startup became Park Technologies. Emma felt her throat tighten. "You never forgot her." "Never," David said. "I found her years later and helped her retire comfortably. But I've always looked for people like her. People like you. People who choose kindness even when it costs them everything." Emma wiped her eyes. "So what happens now?" David leaned forward. "Now, I help you achieve your dream. You'll go to medical school. I'll cover the costs, tuition, housing, books, everything." Emma's breath caught. "I can't accept that. It's too much." "You can and you will," David said firmly. "Because the world needs doctors who understand what it means to care. But first, you need somewhere to stay tonight." Emma had been so focused on everything else, she hadn't thought about that. She truly had nowhere to go. "I have a guest house," David continued. "It's yours for as long as you need it." Emma looked at him, this stranger who had become her salvation, and whispered, "Thank you." Emma spent her first night in David's guest house unable to sleep. The bed was comfortable, the room was peaceful, but her mind raced with everything that had happened. She kept replaying Victoria's words, the anger in her voice, the way she had thrown Emma's bag like it was garbage. Around 2 in the morning, Emma finally dozed off. She dreamed of her grandmother, of medical school, of a future that now seemed possible again. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and, for a moment, panicked before remembering where she was. Safe. Protected. Given a second chance by a stranger's generosity. After showering and changing into clean clothes from her bag, Emma walked to the main house. A housekeeper met her with a warm smile. "Good morning, Miss Emma. Mr. Park asked me to prepare breakfast for you. He's in his study when you're ready." Emma ate quickly, her appetite returning after the stress of yesterday. Then she made her way to David's study, knocking softly on the door. "Come in," his voice called. David sat behind a large desk covered with papers and multiple computer screens. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning. How did you sleep?" "Better than I expected," Emma admitted. "Thank you again for everything." "We need to discuss something important," David said, his expression turning serious. He turned one of his monitors toward her. On the screen was a news article. The headline read, "Tech CEO Victoria Chen confronts mystery billionaire after employee firing." Emma's stomach dropped. "What?" "She showed up at my office building last night with reporters," David explained. "She's trying to control the narrative, paint herself as the victim, claim I somehow manipulated the situation." Emma read quickly through the article. Victoria claimed she had fired Emma for security violations, that David had purposely targeted her company, that this was all a corporate attack. "This is insane," Emma whispered. "She's lying." "Of course she is," David said calmly. "She knows I have the power to destroy her company, so she's trying to destroy my reputation first. It's a defensive strategy." Emma felt guilt wash over her. "This is my fault. If I had just followed the rules." "Stop," David interrupted firmly. "This is not your fault. This is Victoria showing who she really is. The question is, how do we respond?" Emma looked up at him. "What do you mean?" David leaned back in his chair. "I could pull my investment immediately. Her company would likely collapse within months. Or I could hold steady, wait for her to make more mistakes, let her dig her own grave. What do you want to do?" Emma asked. "What I want," David said slowly, "is to know what you want. She hurt you. You have a voice in this." Emma thought carefully. Part of her wanted Victoria to suffer, to understand what it felt like to lose everything. But another part, the part her grandmother had nurtured, knew that revenge wouldn't heal anything. I don't want to destroy her, Emma said quietly. But I don't want her to keep hurting people either. David nodded approvingly. Wise answer. Then we'll do something more strategic. We'll wait. Before Emma could ask what he meant, David's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression hardened. She's outside. What? Victoria. She's at the security gate demanding to see me. Emma's heart raced. What are you going to do? David stood up. I'm going to give her exactly what she came for, a conversation. But Emma, you don't have to be part of this. You can stay here, or you can face her. Your choice. Emma's hands trembled. The thought of seeing Victoria again terrified her. But hiding felt like admitting she had done something wrong. I want to see her, Emma said, surprising herself with her own courage. David studied her face. Are you sure? No, Emma admitted. But I'm doing it anyway. They walked together to the security office, where multiple screens showed camera feeds from the front gate. There was Victoria, perfectly dressed in a designer suit, surrounded by 2 assistants and a camera crew. Let her in, David told his security team. But no cameras passed the gate. Victoria's voice crackled through the speaker. David Park, I know you're watching. We need to talk about what you're planning. David pressed the intercom button. Come to the main entrance. Alone. No assistants, no cameras. There was a pause. Then Victoria's tight reply. Fine. Emma watched as Victoria's SUV pulled through the gate. Her former boss stepped out, and for the first time, Emma saw something in Victoria's face she had never seen before. Fear. Victoria Chen was afraid. And somehow, that made Emma feel both powerful and sad at the same time. Victoria stood in David's entrance hall, and for the first time in years, she looked small. Her designer suit couldn't hide the tension in her shoulders, the slight shake in her hands. When she saw Emma standing beside David, her face went pale. Emma, Victoria whispered. You're here. Yes, Emma replied quietly, holding her ground despite her racing heart. Victoria's eyes darted between them. David, please. Can we talk privately? No, David said firmly. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of Emma. She's the reason you're here after all. Victoria swallowed hard. Emma could see her former boss struggling, pride battling with desperation. Finally, Victoria spoke. I made a mistake yesterday. I acted in anger. I was worried about security, about liability, about control, David interrupted. You were worried about losing control. Victoria flinched. I've worked hard to build my company. I've made sacrifices. I can't let it all fall apart because of what? Emma asked, finding her voice. Because you treated me like I was worthless? Because you threw me out for showing basic human decency? I was protecting my home, Victoria insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. No, Emma said, stronger now. You were protecting your image. You couldn't stand that I made a choice you didn't approve of. It wasn't about safety. It was about power. Victoria's mask cracked. Tears formed in her eyes, though she tried to blink them away. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The board, the investors, the media, everyone's watching, waiting for me to fail. And your solution is to fail at being human? David asked coldly. Victoria, I've been watching your company for 3 years. I've seen how you treat your employees, how you demand loyalty but give none in return. Yesterday wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern. Victoria's face crumbled. Are you pulling your investment? That depends, David said. On what? David gestured to Emma. On her. Victoria turned to Emma, truly seeing her for the first time. Not as an assistant, not as an employee, but as a person whose life she had disrupted. Emma, Victoria said, her voice breaking. I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I know that's not enough, but I am. Emma felt emotions warring inside her. Anger at the injustice. Sadness at the betrayal. But also something unexpected. Pity. Victoria was trapped in a prison of her own making, where kindness was weakness and vulnerability was failure. "Why did you become so cold?" Emma asked softly. "What happened to you?" Victoria seemed surprised by the question. For a moment, her carefully constructed walls fell away. "I had to be. When I started my company, I was the only woman in every meeting. They called me soft, emotional, too kind to lead. So I became hard. I became ruthless. I became everything they said I needed to be to succeed." "And you lost yourself," Emma said. Victoria nodded, tears finally falling. "Yes. I lost myself." The room fell silent. Emma thought about her grandmother, about the lessons of compassion and forgiveness. She thought about the doctor she wanted to become, someone who healed, not hurt. "I forgive you," Emma said quietly. Victoria's head snapped up. "What?" "I forgive you for what you did to me," Emma repeated. "But that doesn't mean I trust you. And it doesn't mean David should keep supporting your company. That's not my decision to make." David nodded approvingly. Then he turned to Victoria. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm not pulling my investment immediately. But you're going to make changes." "What kind of changes?" Victoria asked warily. "You're going to implement better employee policies. Fair wages, respect, support programs. You're going to create a workplace culture where kindness isn't punished. And Emma is going to help design those policies." Emma's eyes widened. "What?" "You're going to medical school," David continued. "But in your free time, you'll consult with Victoria's company. You'll be paid fairly for your time, and you'll help create the kind of workplace you deserve to have." Victoria looked stunned. "You want her to work with me?" "Not for you," David corrected. "With you. As an equal. If you can't accept that, then I walk away, and your company falls." Victoria stared at Emma for a long moment. Then, slowly, she extended her hand. "Will you help me become better?" Emma looked at the offered hand, remembering all the times Victoria had never shaken her hand, never treated her as worthy. This was different. This was change. Emma reached out and shook Victoria's hand. "I'll try. But you have to actually want to change." "I do," Victoria whispered. "I really do." 3 months later, Emma sat in a coffee shop near Boston Medical College. Her acceptance letter spread on the table before her. She had read it 20 times already, but the words still made her heart sore. "Congratulations on your acceptance to Boston Medical College." Her dream was real. It was happening. Her phone buzzed with a message from David. "Proud of you. Dinner tonight to celebrate." Emma smiled and texted back a quick yes. Over the past 3 months, David had become more than her benefactor. He had become her friend. He checked in regularly, asked about her consulting work with Victoria, and never made her feel like she owed him anything. The consulting work had been challenging. Emma spent her weekends at Victoria's company, sitting in on HR meetings, talking to employees, and designing new policies. Victoria resisted at first, falling back into old habits of command and control. But slowly, something was shifting. Just last week, Victoria had personally apologized to 3 employees she had treated poorly. It was awkward and uncomfortable, but it was genuine. Emma gathered her belongings and headed to Victoria's office for their weekly meeting. The receptionist greeted her warmly now, a stark difference from the cold indifference of before. "Emma, good to see you. Ms. Chen is expecting you." Victoria's office looked the same, but the atmosphere felt different. Lighter somehow. "Emma, come in," Victoria said, actually smiling. "I heard about your acceptance. Congratulations." "Thank you," Emma replied, sitting down. "How are the new policies being received?" Victoria pulled up some reports on her computer. "Better than I expected. Employee satisfaction is up 15%. We've had fewer resignations. And productivity has actually improved. Because people work better when they're treated well, Emma said gently. I'm learning that, Victoria admitted. It's hard, unlearning years of wrong thinking. But I'm trying. They spent the next hour reviewing proposed changes to the parental leave policy. Emma pushed for more generous terms. Victoria initially resisted, citing costs, but Emma showed her research on retention and loyalty. Happy employees stay longer, Emma explained. You save money by not constantly training new people. Victoria considered this, then nodded. You're right. Let's do it. As Emma packed up to leave, Victoria spoke again, her voice uncertain. Emma, can I ask you something personal? Of course. How did you forgive me so easily? After everything I did, after I destroyed your life. You didn't destroy my life, Emma interrupted. You destroyed a chapter. There's a difference. Victoria's eyes glistened. I don't know if I could have done the same. That's why it was important that I did, Emma said softly. Forgiveness isn't about the other person deserving it. It's about refusing to let bitterness destroy who you are. Victoria nodded slowly. Your grandmother taught you well. Emma smiled. She did. That evening, Emma met David at an elegant restaurant overlooking Boston Harbor. He stood when she arrived, pulling out her chair, a gentleman through and through. To Dr. Emma, David said, raising his glass once they had ordered. Not yet, Emma laughed. I haven't even started classes. But you will. And you'll be extraordinary. They talked easily through dinner, about her upcoming semester, about his latest business ventures, about the surprising progress Victoria was making. You know, David said, his expression thoughtful, what you're doing with Victoria is remarkable. You're literally changing someone's heart. I don't know about that, Emma demurred. She's doing the hard work herself. Because you showed her it was possible, David insisted. Because you extended grace when you could have demanded justice. Emma set down her fork. Can I ask you something? That day you came to Victoria's door, dressed as you were you testing me specifically? Or was it random? David smiled mysteriously. Does it matter? I'm curious. Let's just say I researched my investments thoroughly. I knew Victoria's character issues. I wanted to see if anyone in her organization had different values. You did. Emma shook her head in wonder. You could have just pulled your investment and destroyed her company. I could have, David agreed. But that wouldn't have changed anything. She would have blamed external factors, learned nothing, and probably treated people worse at her next venture. This way, there's actual transformation. You're playing the long game, Emma realized. Always, David said. Real change takes time. As they left the restaurant, walking along the harbor in the cool evening air, David spoke again. You start medical school in 2 weeks. Are you nervous? Terrified, Emma admitted. But excited too. This is everything I've worked for. You're going to change lives, David said softly. Emma looked at him. This man who had changed her life in the span of a day. Thank you, David. For everything. He smiled. Thank you, Emma. For reminding me why I do what I do. The first semester of medical school hit Emma like a tsunami. The workload was crushing. Anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, patient care. She studied until her eyes burned, survived on coffee and determination, and still felt like she was drowning. Late one night in the library, surrounded by textbooks and notes, Emma's phone buzzed. It was David. How are you holding up? Emma smiled despite her exhaustion. I'm surviving. Barely. Want company? I'm nearby. 20 minutes later, David appeared with 2 large coffees and sandwiches. He sat across from her, looking at the mountain of materials spread across her table. This is intense, he observed. This is impossible, Emma corrected. I don't know how anyone does this. The same way you've done everything else, David said. One step at a time. They sat in comfortable silence while Emma ate. Having him there helped somehow. His presence was calming, grounding. Can I tell you something? Emma asked suddenly. Always. Sometimes I feel like an imposter. Like I don't belong here. Everyone else seems so prepared, so confident. And I'm just what? David prompted gently. Just a girl who used to clean houses, Emma finished quietly. David set down his coffee and leaned forward. Emma, listen to me. You belong here more than most of them. You know what suffering looks like. You understand what it means to need help. That's going to make you an incredible doctor. You really believe that? I know it, David said firmly. Over the following weeks, Emma found her rhythm. She joined study groups, learned to ask for help, and slowly stopped feeling like she didn't deserve to be there. Her grades improved, and more importantly, she began to love the learning. In her second semester, Emma started clinical rotations at Boston General Hospital. Her first day, she met Dr. Sarah Martinez, a seasoned emergency room physician who would be her supervisor. So you're Emma, Dr. Martinez said, looking her over. I hear you have an interesting story. I suppose I do, Emma replied carefully. Good, Dr. Martinez said. Interesting stories make interesting doctors. Come on, let's see how you handle the real world. The emergency room was chaos. Patients with everything from minor cuts to life-threatening conditions. Emma watched Dr. Martinez work with a combination of efficiency and compassion, never losing sight of the human being behind the medical emergency. During a brief lull, Dr. Martinez pulled Emma aside. What do you see when you look at these patients? Emma thought carefully. I see people who are scared. People who need help. People who trust us with their most vulnerable moments. Dr. Martinez smiled approvingly. Good answer. Never lose that perspective. One evening, an elderly homeless man came in with pneumonia. The other medical students kept their distance, uncomfortable with his appearance and smell. But Emma sat beside him, holding his hand while they waited for his test results. Thank you, the man wheezed. Most people look through me like I'm invisible. You're not invisible, Emma said softly. You're here, and you matter. Dr. Martinez watched this interaction from across the room, making notes on her tablet. Later, she called Emma into her office. That man you sat with, do you know who he is? A patient who needed care, Emma replied. He's also a test, Dr. Martinez admitted. We place him in rotations to see how students react. Most fail. They see a homeless person and forget they're seeing a patient. But you didn't. Emma felt her cheeks flush. I just treated him the way I'd want to be treated. Exactly, Dr. Martinez said. That's what medicine should be. You're going to go far, Emma. Meanwhile, Emma continued her consulting work with Victoria. The changes at Chen Digital Solutions were becoming noticeable. The company culture was shifting, becoming more humane, more supportive. Victoria herself seemed different, softer somehow, more willing to listen. She asked Emma's opinion more often, actually valued her input. During one meeting, Victoria shared something unexpected. I've been seeing a therapist. To work on my control issues, my fear of vulnerability. Emma was surprised. That's wonderful, Victoria. It's hard, Victoria admitted. Admitting I need help, that I've been wrong about so many things. But I'm tired of being the person I became. I want to be better. You are getting better, Emma assured her. I've seen the changes. Victoria smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Thank you, Emma, for not giving up on me. As Emma left Victoria's office that day, she realized something profound. Healing wasn't just for patients in hospitals. Sometimes the deepest healing happened in boardrooms and coffee shops, one difficult conversation at a time. Emma's third year of medical school brought new challenges and new revelations. She was excelling in her studies, earning praise from professors and respect from peers. But something else was growing too, something she hadn't anticipated. She was developing feelings for David. It started small. The way her heart skipped when his name appeared on her phone. The way she caught herself thinking about him during lectures. The way she looked forward to their dinners more than anything else in her week. Emma tried to dismiss it. He was her benefactor, her mentor. It wouldn't be appropriate. Besides, someone like David could have anyone. Why would he choose her? But the feelings persisted, growing stronger with each passing month. One evening, after a particularly difficult day at the hospital, Emma called David in tears. "I lost my first patient today," she sobbed. "A little girl. She was only 7. "Where are you?" David asked immediately. "The hospital chapel." "I'm coming." 20 minutes later, David found her sitting alone, her face red from crying. He sat beside her, didn't speak, just wrapped an arm around her shoulders and let her cry. "I keep thinking I should have done something differently," Emma whispered. "Maybe if I had noticed something sooner." "Stop," David said gently. "You can't save everyone, Emma. That's the hardest lesson of medicine." "How do you know?" "Because I watched my sister go through medical school. She tortured herself over every loss until she learned that sometimes, despite everything we do, life has other plans." Emma leaned against him, drawing comfort from his presence. "Thank you for coming." "Always," David said. "I'll always come when you need me." Something in his voice made Emma look up. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the air between them felt charged with possibility. But David looked away first, clearing his throat. "Come on. Let's get you home." The moment passed, but Emma couldn't forget it. Weeks later, during a benefit gala for Boston Medical College, Emma wore a donated dress and felt completely out of place among the wealthy donors. She was about to leave early when David appeared, looking devastatingly handsome in a tuxedo. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes warm. "I feel like I'm playing dress-up," Emma admitted. "You belong here," David assured her. "Come on, let's make an appearance, then we can escape to somewhere more comfortable." They mingled with donors, David introducing Emma as a remarkable medical student who will change the world. His pride in her was evident, and Emma found herself glowing under his attention. Later, they escaped to a quiet balcony overlooking the city lights. "Do you ever miss your old life?" David asked. "Before all this chaos?" Emma considered the question. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity, but I wouldn't trade where I am now for anything." "Not even for peace of mind?" David pressed. "No obligations, no pressure?" "The pressure means I'm moving forward," Emma said. "My grandmother used to say that pressure creates diamonds." David smiled. "She was a wise woman. She would have liked you," Emma said softly. "She always said to surround yourself with people who make you want to be better." David turned to face her fully. "Emma, I need to tell you something." Emma's heart raced. "What is it?" But before David could speak, someone called his name from inside. A business associate needing his attention. "Hold that thought," David said, frustration crossing his face. "I'll be right back." Emma watched him go, her heart still pounding. What had he been about to say? She waited on the balcony, but David got caught in a long conversation. Eventually, Emma gave up and went home, the moment lost. The next day, Victoria called Emma with unexpected news. "I need your advice on something personal." They met at a quiet cafe. Victoria looked nervous, fidgeting with her coffee cup. "What's wrong?" Emma asked. "I've been offered a partnership," Victoria said. "Another tech company wants to merge with mine. It would mean financial security, expansion, everything I've worked for." "That sounds wonderful," Emma said. "What's the problem?" Victoria hesitated. "The company is owned by someone who has a questionable reputation. He treats employees poorly, cuts corners on safety, prioritizes profit over everything. But it's such a good financial opportunity. Emma looked at her former boss steadily. 6 months ago, what would you have done? I would have taken the deal immediately, Victoria admitted. And now? Victoria closed her eyes. Now I keep thinking about the employees. About the culture we've built. About whether money is worth compromising my values again. Emma reached across the table and squeezed Victoria's hand. You already know your answer. Victoria nodded slowly. I do. I'm going to turn it down. I'm proud of you, Emma said sincerely. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Thank you for helping me find my way back to myself. As Emma left the cafe, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This was healing too, not with medicine, but with compassion and patience. That evening, David finally called. I'm sorry about last night. Can we talk? Really talk? Yes, Emma said, her pulse quickening. When? Tonight. My place. I'll cook dinner. Emma arrived at David's home with butterflies in her stomach. He greeted her at the door, looking more nervous than she'd ever seen him. Come in, he said. I hope you like pasta. They ate dinner making small talk, both dancing around what they really wanted to say. Finally, over dessert, David set down his fork. Emma, I need to be honest with you. Okay, Emma said, her heart racing. These past 2 years, watching you grow, supporting your dreams, spending time with you, it's been the best part of my life. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as someone I was helping. I started seeing you as someone I couldn't imagine my life without. Emma's breath caught. David continued, his voice soft. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to complicate things. You had enough to deal with. Medical school, healing from what Victoria did, building your future. I didn't want to add pressure. David, Emma started. But I can't keep quiet anymore, David interrupted. Emma, I'm in love with you. I have been for months. And I need you to know, even if you don't feel the same way. Emma stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. David looked panicked, as if he'd ruined everything. But Emma walked around the table and took his face in her hands. You beautiful, wonderful man. I've been in love with you too. I just didn't think someone like you could ever want someone like me. David stood, pulling her close. Someone like you? Emma, you're extraordinary. You're kind, brilliant, strong, compassionate. You're everything. Their first kiss was soft, tentative, full of months of pent-up emotion. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. So what happens now? Emma whispered. Now, David said, we figure this out together. No more hiding. No more waiting. Emma laughed, joy bubbling up inside her. I like the sound of that. They spent the rest of the evening talking about everything. Their hopes, their fears, their future. For the first time in her life, Emma felt completely safe, completely seen, completely loved. 2 years passed in a blur of growth and happiness. Emma completed medical school, graduating at the top of her class. David was there in the audience, cheering louder than anyone when her name was called. Their relationship had blossomed into something deep and real. They balanced each other perfectly. Emma kept David grounded, reminded him of what mattered beyond business. David supported Emma's dreams, celebrated her victories, held her through her defeats. Emma began her residency at Boston General Hospital, working brutal hours but loving every minute. She specialized in emergency medicine, drawn to the immediacy, the challenge, the opportunity to help people in their most desperate moments. Victoria's transformation continued too. Her company had become known for its excellent workplace culture. She spoke at conferences about leadership and redemption, always crediting Emma for showing her a different path. One Saturday evening, David picked Emma up after a long shift at the hospital. I have something to show you, he said mysteriously. I'm exhausted, Emma protested. Can it wait? No, David said, smiling. It can't. He drove them to the outskirts of Boston, to a property Emma had never seen before. It was a beautiful piece of land overlooking the water, with trees and open space. "What is this?" Emma asked as they got out of the car. "This," David said, "is where I want to build our home." Emma's breath caught. "Our home." David took her hands. "Emma, these past 2 years with you have been the happiest of my life. You've changed me, made me better, made me whole. I don't want to spend another day without you." He dropped to one knee, pulling out a small box. Inside was a simple, elegant ring. "Emma Chen, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Emma's face. "Yes. Yes, of course yes." David slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, lifting her in his arms and spinning her around. They laughed and cried and kissed as the sun set over their future home. The wedding was small and intimate, just close friends and family. Victoria came, sitting in the back, tears streaming down her face as she watched Emma walk down the aisle. After everything, they had become unlikely friends. Emma's dress was simple, her bouquet wildflowers. Nothing fancy, nothing showy. Just love and commitment and hope for the future. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, there was only joyful silence. "I do," David said when his turn came, his voice strong and sure. "I do," Emma echoed, her heart so full she thought it might burst. Their first dance was to a song about second chances and new beginnings. Emma rested her head on David's chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. For believing in me. For loving me." David kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for feeding a hungry stranger. For being brave enough to show kindness when it cost you everything." "Best decision I ever made," Emma said. A year after the wedding, Emma gave birth to a daughter. They named her Grace, after Emma's grandmother. Holding her baby for the first time, Emma felt a profound sense of completion. This tiny person represented everything: hope, love, the future, the continuation of her grandmother's legacy of kindness. "She's perfect," David whispered, his finger stroking Grace's tiny hand. "She's ours," Emma said, smiling through tears. Emma took 6 months of maternity leave, savoring every moment with her daughter. But she missed medicine, missed helping people. When she returned to work, she found a new depth to her practice. Being a mother made her a better doctor, more patient, more understanding. Years passed. Grace grew into a curious, kind child. Emma and David built the house on the land where he proposed, creating a home filled with laughter and love. Emma's career flourished. She became known not just for her medical skill but for her bedside manner, her ability to see the person behind the patient. One day, 5 years after Grace was born, Emma received unexpected news. She had been nominated for a position as a federal judge, based on her consulting work, her character, and her reputation for fairness and compassion. "A judge," Emma said, stunned. "But I'm a doctor." "You're also someone who understands justice," David pointed out. "Someone who changed an entire company's culture. Someone who sees people's potential for redemption." Emma considered it carefully. It would mean leaving medicine, the career she'd worked so hard for. But it would also mean impacting lives on a different scale, making decisions that affected entire communities. After much prayer and consideration, Emma accepted the nomination. The confirmation process was rigorous, but Emma's record spoke for itself. Months later, she stood in a courtroom, her hand on a Bible, taking the oath of office. "I do solemnly swear that I will administer justice without respect to persons, and do equal right to the poor and to the rich." Judge Emma Park. It had a nice ring to it. 10 years after being fired for feeding a stranger, Emma sat in her judge's chambers, reviewing the day's docket. She had been on the bench for 5 years now, earning respect for her thoughtful rulings and her ability to see the humanity in every case. Her assistant knocked on the door. "Judge Park, I have tomorrow's case files. There's one you should look at tonight. It's high profile." Emma took the file and froze when she saw the name, Victoria Chen. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Chen Digital Solutions was being sued by investors for mismanagement and breach of fiduciary duty. They claimed Victoria had made reckless decisions that led to significant financial losses. Emma's heart sank. She had watched Victoria work so hard to change, to become better. What had happened? That evening at home, Emma showed David the file. "I can't believe it." After all the progress she made. David read through the documents carefully. "Emma, look at this. The lawsuit is about decisions made 3 years ago, before most of her reforms. The investors are just bringing it now because the company's growth has slowed." Emma looked again, reading more carefully. David was right. This wasn't about recent actions. This was old business coming back to haunt Victoria. "I should recuse myself," Emma said. "Our history makes this too personal." "Maybe," David said thoughtfully. "Or maybe you're exactly the right judge for this case. You know Victoria's full story, who she was, who she became. You can be truly fair." Emma spent a sleepless night wrestling with the decision. By morning, she had made her choice. She would hear the case. Not because of their past, but despite it. The courtroom was packed the next day. Reporters filled the gallery. Investors sat with expensive lawyers. And Victoria sat at the defendant's table, looking small and scared. When Victoria saw Emma enter in her judge's robes, her eyes widened with shock and something else. Hope? Fear? Emma couldn't tell. "All rise," the bailiff announced. The Honorable Judge Emma Park presiding. Emma took her seat, looking out at the familiar courtroom. "Please be seated." Victoria's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we move for your recusal. Our client has a personal history with you that could create bias." The investor's lawyer jumped up. "We agree, Your Honor. The relationship between the defendant and this court creates an appearance of impropriety." Emma had expected this. Counselors, approach the bench. Both lawyers came forward. Emma spoke quietly but firmly. "I have reviewed my ethical obligations carefully. While Ms. Chen and I have a shared history, I am confident I can be impartial. However, if either party wishes to file a formal recusal motion, I will consider it." The lawyers exchanged glances. Victoria's lawyer whispered with her client, then returned. "Your Honor, the defendant respectfully requests that you hear this case." Emma looked at Victoria, who nodded slightly. "Very well," Emma said. "Let's proceed." The investors' case was strong. They presented evidence of risky investments, missed opportunities, declining market share. Victoria had made mistakes, costly ones. But Victoria's defense was compelling too. Her lawyer showed how she had worked to correct those mistakes, how she had transformed the company culture, how employee satisfaction and retention had improved dramatically. The question, Victoria's lawyer argued, is whether past mistakes made in good faith constitute fraud, or simply business decisions that didn't work out as planned. Emma listened carefully to every word, took meticulous notes, asked probing questions of both sides. She gave no indication of where her sympathies lay. During a recess, Emma noticed Victoria sitting alone in the hallway. On impulse, she approached. "We shouldn't talk," Emma said softly. "But I want you to know, I'm going to be fair. That's all I can promise." Victoria looked up, tears in her eyes. "That's all I've ever wanted, Emma. Just fairness. Just a chance to show I've changed." "The law will decide that," Emma said. "Not me." Back in court, closing arguments were powerful on both sides. The investors demanded accountability. Victoria's lawyer pleaded for understanding and context. Finally, Emma called for a recess to consider her ruling. In her chambers, she sat alone, thinking about everything. The day she was fired, Victoria's transformation, the principles of justice, the meaning of redemption. She thought about her grandmother, who had always said, "Judge the action, not just the person. But never forget the person behind the action." Emma made her decision. When court reconvened, the room fell silent. Emma looked out at the faces. Investors hungry for victory, Victoria terrified of loss, reporters eager for a story. "I have reached my decision," Emma said, her voice steady and clear. "And it's one I believe serves both justice and truth." Victoria gripped the table, her knuckles white. Emma began to read her ruling. Emma's voice filled the courtroom, steady and measured. In the matter of Thompson Investment Group versus Victoria Chen and Chen Digital Solutions, this court has carefully considered all evidence and testimony presented. Victoria sat frozen, barely breathing. Emma continued. "The investors have proven that the defendant made business decisions that resulted in financial losses. However, proving financial losses is not the same as proving fraud or willful misconduct." Hope flickered in Victoria's eyes. The evidence shows that Ms. Chen made decisions she believed were in the company's best interest at the time. Some of those decisions proved unwise in hindsight. But poor judgment is not the same as criminal behavior. The investor's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Furthermore," Emma said, "the court has reviewed evidence of the defendant's efforts to rectify those mistakes, to improve company operations, and to create a more sustainable business model. These efforts demonstrate accountability and good faith." Emma paused, letting her words settle. However, the investors did suffer real losses due to those decisions. They are entitled to some remedy. Victoria's hope dimmed slightly. Therefore, this court rules that the defendant is not guilty of fraud or breach of fiduciary duty. However, Ms. Chen is required to offer the investors a fair buyout option for their shares, at current market value, or to implement a profit-sharing plan that will provide them reasonable returns over the next 5 years. Emma struck her gavel. "This case is closed." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Victoria burst into tears, her lawyer patting her shoulder. The investors looked disappointed but not devastated. They would get something, even if not everything they wanted. "Your Honor," Victoria's lawyer said, standing. "On behalf of my client, I want to thank the court for a fair and thoughtful ruling." Emma nodded professionally. The court appreciates all counsel's professionalism throughout these proceedings. As people filed out, Victoria lingered. When the courtroom was nearly empty, she approached the bench. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't do you any favors," Emma said quietly. "I ruled based on the law and the evidence." "I know," Victoria said. "That's exactly what I needed. Not mercy, not revenge. Just fairness." Emma allowed herself a small smile. "You've come a long way, Victoria." "Because you showed me the way," Victoria replied. "All those years ago, when you fed that stranger, you planted a seed. It just took me a long time to let it grow." After Victoria left, Emma sat alone in the courtroom. She thought about the journey, from a maid being thrown out into the street, to a medical student, to a doctor, to a judge. Every step had led here, to this moment of justice and redemption. That evening, Emma came home to find David cooking dinner while 9-year-old Grace did homework at the kitchen table. "How was court, Mommy?" Grace asked, looking up. "Interesting," Emma said, kissing her daughter's head. "Very interesting." David caught her eye and smiled knowingly. He had followed the case in the news, understood its significance. After Grace went to bed, Emma and David sat on their back porch, looking out at the water. "Do you ever think about that day?" David asked. "The day we met." "All the time," Emma admitted. "It changed everything." "You changed everything," David corrected. "You chose kindness when it cost you your job, your security, your future. That choice rippled out in ways you couldn't imagine." "Victoria changed too," Emma said. "She really did become better." "Because you gave her the chance," David said. "And today you gave her justice. That's a different kind of gift." Emma leaned against him. "Do you think Grace will understand someday? Why kindness matters more than anything?" "If she's anything like her mother, she'll more than understand it," David said. "She'll live it." The next week, Emma received an unexpected visitor at her chambers. "Victoria, carrying a large envelope. "I wanted you to have this," Victoria said, handing it over. Inside was a check for $50,000, made out to the Emma Park Foundation for Medical Students. "Victoria, I can't accept this," Emma protested. "It's not for you," Victoria said. "It's for other students like you were. Students who have the talent and the heart but not the resources. I want to help them the way David helped you." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "This is incredibly generous." "It's incredibly overdue," Victoria said. "I spent so many years taking from people. It's time I gave back." After Victoria left, Emma sat with the check, thinking about cycles and redemption and how one act of kindness could echo through years and lives. She thought about her grandmother, who would be so proud. She thought about the medical students this money would help. She thought about her daughter, growing up in a home where kindness was the highest value. And she thought about a hungry stranger at a gate, a moment of choice, and how everything that mattered came down to deciding what kind of person you wanted to be. Emma picked up her phone and called David. "Guess what just happened?" As she told him about Victoria's donation, Emma smiled. The story that began with her being thrown out into the street had come full circle. Not with revenge, not with bitterness, but with grace, transformation, and hope. Sometimes, Emma realized, the best endings are really just new beginnings. The end. What an incredible journey. If this story touched your heart, smash that like button. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Comment below. What lesson will you take from Emma's story? Share this video with someone who needs to hear that kindness always wins in the end. Thank you for watching, and remember, your small act of kindness today might change someone's entire life tomorrow. See you in the next story.